because we got some good stuff going on. But I'll let her tell.
Aloha mai Kapu. I also want to thank Lekoa and Kahele for organizing this and for Maui College to do something to acknowledge, you know, and help us come together in remembrance of the anniversary tomorrow of the overthrow. We talk about the good stuff that is being done in the community. Mana has gotten involved in different, you know, actions and organizing and mobilizing and stuff like that, mostly on Oahu. We also have a student chapter called Hau Mana. The greatest thing about the name Mana is you can just slap anything before it and after and it works, yeah? So you just slap Wahine after, bam, you have Mana Wahine, there's our women's group, female group, right? You have Mana Ohana, just slap Ohana afterwards, and then we have our Ohana family strengthening stuff. But Haumana is a student group, and last year at this table was Haley Kaiehu, she's an artist, a muralist, and she's from Maui. And it was her mural from Mauna Kea that was sort of painted over the messaging, calling out UH's role in the desecration of the mountain. And Haumana, you know, organized and mobilized students on campus around that issue. But more recently, over the past year or so, we've been sort of focusing our energies on developing something that can help us build capacity that we can take out to the community, and something that's more of a long-term investment. So have folks seen the book that came out recently called The Nation Rising? The Nation Rising? Yeah, Nation Rises. It's a anthology, I guess. So it's a book of many chapters written by many people in the community about Hawaiian land struggles. And it was a way to sort of honor and mahalo Uncle Ed Greavy's contributions through photography to the movement. He's the one that's taken all those great black and white photos for decades. And so there are the stories around those photos. So it goes through all kinds of our people's struggles, from Waihole Waikane to the current Mauna Kea struggle, Kaho'olawe. It goes through all kinds of marches and protests and struggles that our people have gone through over the past few decades. And so one of the Mana members, Noi Kudir Kaupua, she approached us and said that she wanted to go for a small grant to take some of these stories out and develop it into a curriculum that we could take into the community to help raise consciousness and teach organizing skills to whoever wants it, really. We thought that was a great idea, and so what we've been working on, let me show a picture. We're just starting to pilot it now, but it's called Movement Building for Ea, and this is the participants' workbook. And this takes 4 mo'olelo out of that book, and it brings out the lessons from those mo'olelo. So it's important, you know, Andre's talking about that we want to go and we want to create more organizers, right? We all have passions, we all have ideas, we're on the same page in many ways, but there's not a lot of organizing. Well, there is some good organizing, but there could be more organizing happening in the community. But why not teach about organizing through those who spent their time doing it already, right? Which is our own people, our own kupuna that have gone through these struggles, and that great lessons have come out of these particular struggles. So in this one, we start with the current struggle for, over the telescopes on Mauna Kea. And we use that sort of as a foundational setting to talk about our genealogical connections to land and our sacred places. And we get everybody thinking about that and talking about Ea as a living, breathing concept of sovereignty, right? It's not just something that's in a book, it's not just something that's in law. It's something that takes active engagement with Aina and with our communities to keep alive and well and strong. And then we move on to a student movement that came out of the University of Hawaii. Back Kalekoa and Kahele were part of the student movement. They formed a group called Make'e Pono. And Make'e Pono had a big, lofty goal to decolonize the University of Hawaii, which is kind of a huge, huge task, right? But they were able to narrow that goal down to a specific campaign, which was to get a Hawaiian language article in the Ka Leo newspaper. And Ka Leo wasn't interested in that. And so this story talks about how Ke Āina sort of waged a campaign and they created a strategy and they had different tactics that escalated over time. And eventually, Ka Leo put the Hawaiian language column in the newspaper. So through this module, we talk about, well, first of all, sort of theoretically, we teach participants about institutional racism, right? So this is a way to sort of bring that critical consciousness. Know racism when you see it, be able to recognize it when you see it, and know how it plays out all around us, including in the university. And then in terms of skill building, it talks about strategy and tactics and campaign building. So it gives sort of a real, skillful takeaway from it. We go through all kinds of fun exercises. And then the third module pulls from the story of Kaori-Lei, and it talks about the way that these young people at this time, this young group of Hawaiians, were able to pull from their own culture, pull from our own culture, and bring out this story of Aloha Āina, these values of Aloha Āina, and talk about our connections to Kanaloa, to Kaori-Lei, and bring people in through mele, connecting, going out talking to the communities, building a broad base of support. And miraculously, this small group of young Hawaiians being able to eventually beat the Navy, the US Navy, right? And get this island back. And so we talk about all of those elements. We have students practice writing, engaging with the media, and talk about reaching out to community and puna and utilizing components such as mele. And then the last module that we have pulls from Nā Aikāne, and it gets more into direct action. So it talks about creating a direct action plan, and we bring a community together. Who's going to deal with what, right? Who's going to deal with cooking? Who's going to deal with media? Who's going to deal with police? Just knowing that at some point, these are things that we may have to think about and to get people thinking about it. It also talks about kuleana and positionality. So one thing that we found that we weren't necessarily expecting with this curriculum is that there are groups out there that are activist-oriented, that are mostly non-Hawaiian, that are finding this curriculum desirable so that they can learn about where they're at. And we have an opportunity to go in and talk to them. This is what activism looks like in Hawaii. This is our history of it. You're not coming into a place that doesn't have already a rich history of struggle and activism and fighting for land. And, by the way, there's this context of sovereignty and occupation that anybody doing activist work here needs to understand, right? And so we talk about, okay, what is your position to this community that you want to support and struggle? Yeah? Are you from this community? Because if you are, then you will be making decisions. You will have certain kinds of kuleana, right? If you're not from this community, well then there's many ways that you can support also, but your kuleana is going to be different. Yeah? So depending on how far out you are, what your connection is to the community, your kuleana is going to be different. So that's what we're doing with Movement Building for EA. It's a way for us to get into the community, really engage with the community and find people that are really committed to ongoing and continuing struggle, to bring in to mana to help us organize as well. Do I have time? Then the other thing. Then the other thing that we're doing is something called mana ohana. And those of us who are most active in mana, we're all parents, we all have young children, we're working, we're going to school, and we're also trying to commit to struggle and activism. And anybody here who's involved in those kinds of things knows just how taxing it is. Taxing on the family, taxing on the kids. So what we're doing is we're committing to creating spaces once a month where we come together with the whole family, we do some planting, we do it at Hanakehau, at Andre and Camille's farm that they have in Waiapa. We do some planting, we do pule, we share food together, and we do a keiki activity where all the parents sit down and engage with the kids, right? So whether it's drawing, coloring pictures of ali'i, we did a little impromptu hanakeaka, the story of Maui. We're gonna do some stamping this coming Sunday, and then the kids go play, and they're all happy to play together, and then we get to talk politics and organize and plan, right? So we're trying to make this a very family-friendly lifestyle. We can commit to activism, you know, without sacrificing the whole family in the meantime. And that's a struggle to do. So that's the other thing that we're working on. And this year we have some very concrete goals about learning certain pule and protocol together as an organization that we can also utilize out in the community when we represent mana or in protest. And sort of building spiritually strengthening us as a political organization and as families. I think that's all I have to share. Thank you.